Thank you very much, Dave. And I'm very excited about Matt dancing for a living. It makes me want to reconsider everything. All right, let's go back to our fantastic and fascinating conference with the upcoming panel discussion. And the topic is going to be corporate governance, something that I'm really looking forward to. We're going to be discussing the expanding role of the CFO in governance, risk, and compliance. And I'd like to invite our panel moderators, Stuart Chaplin, Vice President of Finance Risk Management, Shell Trading and Supply. And he's joined Shell in 1999 and has held a number of positions. Most recently, the Global Commercial Finance Manager for Shell's retail business and a Director of Shell Brands International, AJ. Let's all welcome him with a big round of applause. I would like to invite our panelists to the stage as well. Hamid Kazem, a member of the Board of Directors and Chairman of the Audit and Compliance Committee, Commercial Bank of Dubai, UAE. Fatima Al-Ghafali, Deputy CEO and CFO, Shared Services, Dubai Media. It's so nice to see some ladies come on the stage today. And Dr. Ashraf Gamal Al-Din, CEO, Hawkawawa, UAE. Vincent Tophoff, Senior Technical Manager, IFAC PAIB Committee. Last but not least, Saad Minyar, Managing Partner, Cohort, DIFC. Please enjoy the panel.
Thank you very much. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this panel. I have to say, a session both after lunch and after a motivational speaker is never the easiest thing, but we're certainly going to do our best up here for you. I'm only pleased to find someone who I can actually dance better than, so that's reassuring. It's difficult to think of a topic which is more relevant and important to everyone in this room. And I'm delighted to have the opportunity to be up here with such an experienced and diverse range of panelists. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go through and introduce each of them individually. You all have copies of their biographies on the brochures on your desk. And I'm just going to jump straight in to get the conversation started. We're going to have a couple of questions up here directed at the panelists from myself. And then hopefully, if we have enough time, I'll also open it up to the floor for a few questions. So if you do have a burning question that you'd like to ask, please hold on to it and you'll have an opportunity, hopefully, to ask it at the end. So on that note, let's start. And let's start by taking a step back and looking at the bigger picture. And my question is around, why is good governance good business? Saad, perhaps we could start with you.
Sure. I'd like to start with my own definition of corporate governance. What corporate governance means. It's disclosure, transparency, and control. That's what I call it, a corporate governance. To explain why it is important to different stakeholders, I would like to share a small story of one of our clients. An entrepreneur with a big vision started a business, and over the years, he grew into multiple outlets across the region. Then he had a need to expand further. He thought it would be good if he can reach out to some of his friends who will be willing to participate because they trust him and they know what business he is into. So he reached out to his few of his friends, and to his surprise, they asked him some questions which he was kind of surprised. They asked him, "What is your business plan? How do you control your business?" And he explained, "Can we see some documents?" And he did not have anything which made him think in terms of what am I doing? If I have to grow my business, I need to have so-and-so in place. So he started to ponder about the thought, and then he called us for a meeting. We explained him this is what it is about, and he said, okay, give me some time. He took about 6-7 months. He put all his thoughts on paper, and then he invited us, okay, now put this in the framework. The simple thing what he had in his mind was that each and everything, whatever he does, has to have an added value. And with that simple theory behind his thought, what he put on paper, he asked us to build the governance around that. Governance means controls, and the disclosure and the transparency which he wanted to transpire it to the other stakeholders. And then finally he got the investors on board, and he was happy. A couple of years down the line, he further said, I want to improve the benchmark. So he said, I want to benchmark with the best in class. So he picked up the industry, a listed company, and he said, okay, can you benchmark our practice against this? And we did that exercise, and then soon after that, he got himself listed on the stock exchange. So that's the journey, and that's how and why it is important to have the good governance in place.
Fantastic.
Doesn't matter the size of the business.
Thank you. Thanks, Saad. Hamid, a view from you, perhaps.
About governance itself, you mean what it means?
So why is good governance good business?
I mean, governance, I don't need to redefine, obviously, governance, because probably everyone knows about it. But it's quite important to businesses, but to the individual as well. It's a form of accountability. And it's not only at the corporate level, it's at the individual level as well. And for me, governance is very much about the mindset, the conviction, behavior, and the culture. Everything else actually is a formality and detail.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Fatma, anything from yourself?
I'm a strong believer in governance. Because through governance and proper control, you can prevent disasters from happening. Everyone knows about Enroll's scandal back in 2001, and a few others that followed afterwards. I think this is a common thing between finance people. We're very control freaks, and we like things that are too logical, and we want to be safe, and we don't like taking risks. I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's definitely partially good. And my other colleagues talked earlier more about this part, which is we need to be more innovative, and we need to be more up to date with what's happening outside our small box of finance, being more strategic. So yes, I believe in that, but I also believe in looking at it from a bigger point of view.
Lovely. Yes, indeed. Innovation, a word close to my heart, and I'm sure everyone here. So let's then take a step closer to the topic at hand, and that is around the expanding role of the CFO in the areas of risk, governance, and compliance. And I'd like to explore and get some views around what the forces and factors are which are driving this expansion in the role of the CFO. So Dr. Ashraf Gamal, perhaps I could start off with yourself.
Thank you. Let me just put things into perspective, as you said correctly. Now, governance or corporate governance is about how organizations are being directed and controlled. Now, this includes different elements. So controls is one of them, but what's more important is the concept of a strategy, the foresight of the business, the positioning of the organization itself in the market, and controls is part of that, as I said, and of course, risk management is a key element. Now, clearly, what happened after the crisis is it became very clear that the CFO plays a key role in the area of governance in organizations. Now, previously, it used to be thought you have the board and the CEO and that's it. But in fact, CFOs, they have a major role in that. They have a major role in the area of strategy for the organization itself, because it's all about investments, financing, and strategy. The other side of the coin is risk as well. Whenever you decide on certain options for the company, what you have to think about is what are the risks associated with that. So the CFO plays a role in the area of strategy, in the area of risk for the organization itself. So the traditional way of looking at the CFO as about the financial statements is not really an accurate one anymore. It is not really feasible anymore. Now also, most of the weaknesses we see in governance in organizations come from the financial statements and the CFOs. In fact, most of the corporate governance, the biggest scandals that we know about, whether it's Enron or anything else, when you read online, these are in fact accounting scandals, they call them, not corporate governance scandals. They all start and end with the financial statements and what you do with them. And that's why you see now the trend is the CFO is an important part of the governance circle. In some countries, such as the UK, actually he or she is a board member as well. In some jurisdictions, such as in the US, in the financial market now, they have to be reporting to the board, not to the CEO. So the rule is really escalating, if you like. The more experience we have, the more we think of the CFO as one of the key pillars of success or failure of organizations.
Thank you, fascinating. Vincent, what about yourself? Forces and factors driving this expanded CFO role. Any reflections?
Well, thank you, Stuart. First of all, I think that we, within IFAC, we have a sort of a very broad concept of governance. We think governance is everything that an organization needs to do in order to create and to preserve value for its stakeholders. We also believe that governance is not only corporate governance, it's not only important for corporates, private companies if you'd like, but it's equally important also for not-for-profit entities and also for government, for example. There's a good reason, I think, that government and governance, that these two words are very similar to each other. Well, you know, I think that the CFO is an important member of the senior management team, and as we sort of use this broad concept of governance, it also explains why the CFO, together with the management team, have to be seen as the leader of driving corporate governance throughout the whole organization from the top to the bottom.
Thank you. And Saad, any reflections from your side on these forces which are driving this expanding role?
Well, I think the technology has played a big role, and it will continue to play even bigger role. And we heard from the previous speakers, especially Hamad, that the role of the CFO, in fact, he kind of proposed in a way that, you know, it needs to be changed to Chief Performance Officer. So that's where we are heading to.
Yes, indeed. The word technology and also disruption, a theme which has been very prevalent today, of course. So certainly that resonates with me. So if we then have the concept that good governance is good business, we have these forces which are encouraging and almost pushing the CFO to play this expanded role. I think the next obvious question is, what are the challenges that CFOs and indeed accountants in general are going to have when trying to step up and to try and do more in this area? So Fatma, perhaps we could give some perspectives from your side as to what you think these challenges are going to be for accountants and CFOs to play this bigger role.
Okay, probably I could be a contrarian when I express my opinion on this. I don't think in this case, you know, everything has to be done within reason. So when we talk about the expanded role of the CFO, I have a lot of respect for CFOs. Maybe at some stage I was a group CFO for a large group here. But the reality in this case, you have to put it in the right context also. Yes, the role of the CFO itself should be expanded, but again, within reason. You have to strike the right balance also between the role of risk, compliance, and other things, and technology. And depending on the size and complexity of the organization, you may want to split these roles and not actually combine them into one. So I'm not totally blindly for expansion of the CFO role. However, having said that, we have to rightly see the critical role of the CFO itself. It has to be rightly placed. And one of the challenges, obviously, is that CFOs, we use that title sometimes loosely and broadly. So, for example, an accountant can be labeled as CFO, but he or she may not be a true CFO. So assuming that person is a true CFO in this case, one of the challenges is that there is perception. Accountants are broadly referred to as being counters. So that automatically actually confines you and limits you in terms of your role and in terms of your contribution to the organization itself. I think the internal perception within the organization, whether by the board or by the CEO, plays a major part in this. Then there is a broader general, I think, industry perception about the CFO. And the onus actually is to a great extent on the CFOs themselves to change that negative perception.
Okay, thank you. Fatma.
I'd actually like to start by asking the audience a question, because I hear this a lot. Do you feel that other departments or people in your organizations don't involve you enough at a strategic level for being finance people? Do you think this is a problem? I just want to see a raise of hands of how many think or see it as existing, or is it not a problem anymore? Oh, very few.
Okay.
Very few.
Yeah, I think the question again, how many of you think that CFOs are not involved enough in the strategy and decision making in the organizations? Can you please raise your hand?
Thank you for clarifying my question. Okay, so I think this is one of the challenges. Even though I'm kind of surprised it's taking so long for something that's, to me it's very obvious. The importance of not only a CFO or a finance manager, but even the whole finance team. And the same goes for every other section of business. Everyone is as important. Operation, runs the business, moves the business, makes income, and everyone else also has a big role to play. We are interrelated. You can't divide us. And I'm surprised that till today we still have this problem. However, this is a fact and it exists. And I would say this is one of the biggest challenges. However, and it's been advised so many times in this conference today, is that we have to stand up and show up more and sell our value either through, smart kind of reporting or involvement in higher business decision making, and running the business as if you are the owner of the business, looking after the well-being of your organization and of the short-term and long-term objectives. Just being part of the whole team, not necessarily limiting yourself to numbers only. That's one. The other thing is which I think is very important and is challenging, is that we get into the routine of things and we forget to get updated with what's happening outside our small box again. And as we know today, especially at the digital world, things are moving very fast. I work in the media industry, and I don't think as many people, and you will agree with me, I think, are still watching conventional TV and conventional, channels or radio channels, or even reading manual newspapers, printed newspapers. Everyone is going online, and I think we shouldn't take things for granted and just go about things the same way we used to, in a routine kind of way. We should keep ourselves very much up to date with what's happening outside. And another way to do this is also to encourage youngsters to come into the workforce, and it's okay to learn from them. What we know is may be obsolete in some cases.
Indeed. Dr. Ashraf, you're dying to get involved in this conversation. Why don't you give us your thoughts?
Yes, from my experience as a chairman of board, audit committees in so many companies, and board member, and then in Hawkama and working with companies, the key challenges in the escalating role of the CFO is the original education and training they have, which is mainly in the accounting and in the numbers, which is great. But in fact, from the management perspective and governance perspective, what we need to go is really beyond the numbers. In many cases, I would have a report by the CFO, which is a very nice report, but then I would challenge lots of recommendations, because these are, if you take the immediate sort of financial or accounting perspective, these are correct. But if you look at the strategy, the wider picture, and the future plans of the organization, these are not the right sort of recommendations and so on. So the key challenge, I think, would be on the skills and the training that CFOs have. It's merely numeric, and it's on the financial statements, which is great, but that has to be supplemented by other things in the area of the strategy, in the area of risk, for example, and so on. I think this is a key part that is a challenge for escalating CFOs. But now, I mean, the trend is in FTSE 100, more than 80% of the board members come from a financial background, because now the industry realizes that financial background is a must. It's a key. But then you have to have add-ons to that, so that that person is really able to participate in making the strategy and the future of the organization.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to take a step back, actually, to something, Fatma, you said around, so there's this demand, people would like CFOs and accountants to play a bigger role. Yet in many organizations, accountants and CFOs are not taking up that challenge. And Saad, I'd be interested in your perspectives, working as a consultant in the advisory side of the economy. What do you think that is? Why are accountants, why are CFOs not stepping up as much as we would like them? What's holding them back?
I think what I believe what is lacking in the CFOs who we have currently is their ability to predict things which are not related to the business. So we are more focused on the numbers and what happens within the business. But there are many external factors which kind of changes the dynamics, the way the business is being done. A lot of things have been talked about, the Uber, for example. So the car manufacturer today not necessarily competes only with the car manufacturers, they compete with the technology providers as well. So I think the CFOs need to look beyond their organization, what's happening, and everything is interrelated. So they need to have the wider picture. And once they kind of have that, and I like the picture what was shown earlier of the cockpit, and that's how the future of the CFOs is going to be.
Indeed. No, I think that picture resonated with many of us, so we'd agree with that.
Stuart,
yes,
can I add
Fatma?
something? I think this goes back to what Dave Crane said and Charles Tiley. You are responsible for yourself. If you're not heard, could be something to do with you. If you're not reporting properly, if you're not communicating, and if you don't have the personality to convince people and speak to them, not in financial, maybe, words, but in a language they understand, and selling the point to them, then they'll appreciate you more. I think that would be a good thing, a good area to start with.
Indeed. No, I think communication skills are always important. In the worst case, you can always do a dance like that chap in the worst case scenario. So let's go on to the topic of sort of competencies and capabilities. And Vincent, I think you'd be very well placed to offer some insights here. But in the room we have obviously a lot of CFOs, but far more importantly we have accountants and other people here and outside in the professional accountancy bodies who are aspiring to be CFOs. What are the tools and resources that are available to support accountants who are aspiring to become CFOs and would like to play a bigger role in this area of governance, risk and compliance?
Well, thank you, Stuart. First of all, I think that within IFAC and its Professional Accounts and Business Committee, we actually think that CFOs are much better placed to play an important role than many of the CFOs or the aspiring CFOs might think. And in that respect, I would also like to compliment the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Pakistan, not only for this very successful CFO conference, and I'm proud to say that this is my third CFO conference that I'm participating in from ICAP. But also important, I think, is that ICAP over the last many years has been a sort of an active member in IFAC's Professional Accounts and Business Committee. And what we are trying to do within our committee, we try to develop publications, standards, guidance, discussion papers, etc., that really try to help you thrive in your businesses, to help you helping your organization getting better in governance, risk management, internal control, and all those subjects. And Stuart, if you allow me, is it possible that I ask a disrupting question to the audience, because we are in a disruptive session? And can I ask, because you are in your comfort zone now, you're sitting on a chair, and I'm sitting here on the stage, a little bit less in my comfort zone, but let me make you a little bit uncomfortable. Please, will the people who have now a phone in front of them, or a tablet or a computer, could they please stand up? Very good. You're the winners of this session, because what you can do now is I give you an email address, which is www.ifac.org, and I'm proud to say that all the publications that we had within IFAC, you can find them online through our IFAC website, and they're available for all of us for free. So again, I would like to thank you, ICAP, so much for also participating in developing those papers, and I truly hope that also after this year, ICAP will continue to help participate together with the global accountancy profession in continuing to develop those guidance papers about risk management, about internal control, and all these papers basically they discuss exactly the questions that you asked, Stuart. So that means that you not only have to concentrate your attention now on the stage, but you can also, after this conference, go home, go to the IFAC website, and find all the publications that might be useful for you in learning more about what we think is good governance, good risk management, and good internal control. Thank you so much.
Okay, good bit of advertising there for IFAC, if you weren't aware of the website. Thank you, Vincent. So, Hamid, I have a question for you. In this area of governance, risk and assurance, if there was one thing you would want your CFO or CFOs to do differently in this space, what would that one thing be?
Be a businessman.
Be a businessman.
Yeah.
Okay.
Be a businessman.
Okay.
Foremost. At the end of the day, we're talking about corporates. I'm assuming for the most part, these are actually for-profit corporates. But the same principle still applies. You have to think like a businessman, a business person, or a CEO. Even in your role, within your role as a CFO, you have to think as a business person.
Okay, think as a CEO.
Yeah.
Ashraf, any reflections from your side?
I think he or she has to be extremely and very highly ethical people, because it's a matter of trust. And again, history shows that the weaknesses and the strength come from the strong or weak CFO in that respect. So I would say ethics, corporate governance, that person has to be really aware of the entire system of governance so that they know exactly where they fit. That would be the must for me.
Okay, some good words of advice. Okay, so we're going to move into Q&A in a session. So if you have a question you'd like to ask, now's the right time to start thinking about it. But before we do that, I'd like to ask each panelist one last question. So in the room, we have a number of accountants who aspire to become CFOs and potentially CEOs. What is the one piece of advice that you would give them in looking to improve and develop the impact they have in the area of governance, risk, and compliance? What's your one piece of advice? And why don't we start with you on the end there, Saad?
I'll answer the question a little differently. The actual fact that the employer-employee relationship has to change. Lot of things have changed in the technology, the way we do business and all that. The employer-employee relationship has to change. Why only the employer take the risk of profit or loss? Each and every employee has to be a self-employed person within the business, and they should carry the risk and reward. So I think it is time that this kind of culture will come, So all of us need to be prepared for such change in culture.
Thank you. Vincent.
Well, I would say is that if the CFO would sort of concentrate on what he or she is very good in, and I think that CFOs are typically very good in provision of information, information to make decisions in organizations, information to execute those decisions, and at the end of the process, information to wrap up, to monitor, to review, and to provide accountability to inside the organization and to its external stakeholders. I think that if you really truly look at that role and you see how important that is to make the organization go around, to actually implement a corporate governance, I think that only from this aspect, this important aspect, what CFOs typically do, that's such an important aspect of good governance, good governing an organization. I think if we concentrate on that, and that's what most CFOs do, then I think that we are already contributing much more to good governance than we actually realize.
Thank you.
If you would like to be a successful CFO who adds value to the organization, you have to keep your eyes on the bigger picture, on the entire industry and in the economy, and on what's happening, and don't narrow yourself to the financial statements of the company. You have to look much wider than this.
Thank you.
I think I'm such a good student of Dave Crane today. Sorry, I keep on quoting you. I would say you should start with recognizing your strengths. If they are in finance, because not everyone maybe aspires to be a CFO, which is okay. Maybe being a CFO is not what would make you happy. So identify your strengths. If it is towards being a CEO, maybe a CFO and a CEO, maybe also work on them. And then start thinking and acting just a little bit. Don't overstep over your manager's decision and their positions. Start thinking like them, or pretend you are in their position. What would you do? How would you think? How would you? And I see this in where I work from other accountants and staff in finance who are really smart, and they think on a strategic level. They really care for the organization, and they want the organization to strive and do better. And they show that with deep analysis of numbers versus what's happening in the organization from all kinds of areas, whether it's HR skills or operational efficiencies, and outside the organization and the economy, on what's maybe expected in the short and long term, risks. They help us make decisions. And for us, when we see that, it encourages us to consider them for these positions. Other than that, just keep yourself updated, as I said before. Technology, digital, the old way of doing business, I don't think is going to stay around for long.
Thank you. Hamid.
I think that to start with, I think I'm disadvantaged. I've run out of great ideas by my colleagues here. But if I were to sum it up, when it comes to actually governance, simply become a role model. If you want, in this case, good governance and transparency from the organization, you might as well start with yourself and with your own function and walk the talk. The rest will follow.
Fantastic. Well, you heard it here, people, some great insights and perspectives from our experienced and diverse group of panelists. We do have a few minutes for questions from the floor. So let me now turn it over. And if you'd like to ask a question, please put up your hand and we'll get a microphone. There's one over here. If you could just start by introducing yourself, your name and who you are, and please direct the question to the panelist of your choice. There's one right at the front here.
I am Mohammed Makbul, ICAP Council member. Don't you think that in most of the organizations, particularly the family-owned organization, the board and the owners do not give proper recognition and authority to CFO to play his strategic role? That's my question to the panel.
Okay, is anyone who'd like to offer a view or perspective?
Can I say?
Please.
Okay, now we have worked a lot with family-owned organizations, and they are extremely challenging, as you said, not just for the CFO, for anybody else. Now, the question is whether these families would like to have proper governance or not. In most of the cases, they don't want to. They just want the facade, but not the actual corporate governance. Now, one of the other stories which is very interesting, one of the big family companies, which is now number 6 in the world, actually in the telecommunication, for example. Now, when they wanted to merge with a French company, they were asked different set of questions than what you mentioned. So the question was, how many of the family members are on the board of this company? How much do they participate actually in decision making in the company? How is the family interacting with that company? And they ended up for 2 years taking out the entire family from the board, having just one person on the board, and then having truly independent board to have corporate governance. So I do agree with you, if the family business is not interested to have proper corporate governance, this is not a good place for the CFO to be in. It will really take you down. And for the CFO, the key asset that you have is your own integrity and reputation as well. So if you work in a family business which is not interested in corporate governance, it's either that you will be used for things which they want, or you will never be able to do the right thing. It's as simple as this. So in most of the cases, you will not find a strong CFO who is really independent working with the family unless the family really cares for corporate governance.
If I may add to this, if the CFOs are seen to add value to the family business, then it is more likely that they will kind of accept the CFOs and involve the CFO in the decision-making process than otherwise.
Thank you. Okay, let's take another question. Any other questions? There's one right in the front here. Sanjay.
Great. I guess I have the right to talk about, how we make sure that CFOs are better recognized, yeah? Having now turned into a CEO. So it's very interesting, and this everybody should do, is there is a very interesting Korn Ferry Institute research that was recently published. And it talks that, globally, if we take the top 2,000 companies, only 13% of the CFOs are now recognized to have the competency to become CEOs. In the past, it used to be many, many more. And the big discussion in there is the left brain versus the right brain. And the left brain is all about technical competency, understanding standards and all. I think we do a great job on that. Our problem is the right brain. And right brain is about decision making, it's about strategy, it's about being able to take risk, it's about being able to bounce back when we have a catastrophe or a challenge or an issue. It's about being able to be optimist. It's about connecting yourself with a strategy, to be able to talk the language of the business, to be able to talk the language of the stakeholders. And I think this is partly a challenge to us as individuals, and I think it's partly a challenge to the PAOs that we all belong to. Because I think our curriculum is very heavy on the left brain and not on the right brain. The other thing I would say is that all our associations need to start having role models. So I think we need to start creating a database of role models, people who we can talk to. I think this conversation is fantastic because there's so many people, if they are listening, are picking up very, very quality things. So the more we have this kind of conversations, the more it inspires to have our right brain working a little bit more. So I think mine was just much more comments, and if you have any comments to that, be very useful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any comments to add?
I'll say, Fadali.
No.
I'll say, I think you're absolutely right. I think the onus actually is on the CFO himself or herself to create their own role and move out of the box. But foremost, I think one of the critical things about CFO's characteristics is all about leadership and the personality. Technical competency, knowledge, and all of this is a given. But the personality is the most challenging thing. And I think so long as you got the personality and the charisma and the leadership capability, you'll be able to cope and be more resilient. The rest will follow again.
Okay. Well, I think we've got time for one last question. Is there not, there's one right at the front here.
Yeah, hi, Shabir from RBS. I've got a question for Dr. Ashraf and Hamid here, because you've been in practice. Do organizations do enough in terms of nurturing their CFO talents to bringing on these people into the boards and benefiting from their experience? I agree with you fully that it's a personality thing, but let's flip the question. And in your experience working cross boards, does that happen enough in the region?
I spoke before, you see, you carry on.
Yes, I mean, I see this a lot actually here in the region. I see many companies which are supporting and nurturing CFOs. They attend board meetings, they are part of committees, they are in close contact with audit committee and with the CEO of the company, and so on. Even sometimes, in some cases, we see CFOs who are representing the company in affiliated companies on the boards actually of these companies and so on. So I've seen that happening in some cases, yes, in reality, yeah.
Since you have flipped the question, in this case, I'll flip it too. It also depends on the personality, obviously, of the board and the chairman as well. And you got two extremes. People actually I think, disproportionately rely on the CFO, or disproportionately do not rely on the CFO. I think you don't have many cases where they appropriately size up the role of the CFO and give him or her the right role in the organization. I think it's an evolution. If we were to look, for example, at the UAE itself as an example, and in Dubai specifically, we are actually in a journey, and we are learning, and we are going through evolution. Do CFOs get, I think, fair recognition? I'll say no, but it's changing over time. But again, the onus at the end of the day, is on the CFOs themselves to create that kind of respect and recognition and their proportionate and right role in the organization.
Fantastic. And I think that's a great note to end on. Thank you very much. It's been a great audience. I hope you've enjoyed it. Some very interesting insights, comments from the experience of our panelists. Can I also take this opportunity to say thank you very much to our panelists for giving up their precious time to be with us. Please join me in giving them a round of applause. Thank you.
Thanks to our panelists. And now it's time for the panel discussion, and the topic is integrated reporting, global evolution of corporate reporting from historical performance to a holistic and integrated story value creation. I'd like to invite our panel moderator, Charles Tilley, Chairman, IFAC Professional Accountants and Business Committee. Let's welcome him with a big round of applause. And our panelist, Status Gold, head of IFAC PAIB Integrated Reporting Lead. And Michael Nuget, a Technical Director, International Integrated Reporting Council, IFAC. Let's welcome him with a big round of applause. Please enjoy the panel.
Now on the subject of integrated reporting, and with me I have Stasis Gould and Michael Nugent. And what we're actually going to do on this occasion is actually have a couple of presentations and talk through the issues, and we will then move on to Q&A after that. So I'm going to just start by talking through the concept of integrated reporting. And then Michael is going to talk about how integrated reporting is developing, and then Stasis is going to talk about the experience to date in terms of integrated reporting. Now, what we have in the concept of integrated reporting is very much building on the session that we've had. Good governance is good business. And better business is trusted, and integrated reporting is something which is very much focused upon developing a good report which enables organizations to be trusted by their stakeholders, investors, and others. And I think Fatima just now talked about the importance of understanding the external environment and it was also mentioned the importance of being a good businessman if you're an effective CFO. And all of that we are building upon with integrated reporting. So why integrated reporting? Well, this morning I talked about the very volatile world that we're in, and I don't think we need to go through that again. I think we've heard all about that. We know where we are. It is a challenging world. It's a world where we need to embrace that disruption. We also talked about the fact that value is moving off the balance sheet this morning. And again, that drives the need to talk about and report about the business in its entirety, not just the narrow financial statements, and this is a key driver for integrated reporting. And I think this is a key statement. It was made 2 or 3 years ago in Rome by the then president of the International Federation of Accountants, Warren Buffett. And he said, the present reporting system is broken. And for the leader of the International Federation of Accountants to be making that statement, I think is a dramatic point to be making. And it is in answering the fact that the system is broken that integrated reporting and the framework has been developed. So who is the IRC? Well, it's a group of organizations coming together to develop a reporting framework which is not just the businesses reporting to the investors, but it is NGOs, its regulators, standard setters, and the accounting profession itself, of course. So it's a hugely inclusive group of people, the Integrated Reporting Council, and the framework is aimed at addressing all of their needs. So the mission is very much about ensuring that reporting and integrated thinking is focused upon business and business to the entire business today rather than just the narrow financial statements. And really, really importantly, the focus is upon ensuring that capital is allocated where it should be allocated. You remember this morning I was talking about how was capital shared between the investors, staff, the reinvestment in the business and society, including through taxation. So the benefits of integrated reporting are obviously for the benefit of the business, but they're for the investors and they're very much for the wider stakeholders. So it is embracing business in its entirety. And the concept is very much then about looking at business in a connected manner. And again, I think we heard about that in the last session. And it's about having an efficient allocation of capital, and then if the organization is being run on the basis that it is effectively connected to its business model, then it's about how do businesses tell their story effectively? How do they talk about how they create value and how they are meeting the needs of all of their stakeholders? And this chart, which unfortunately is difficult for all of you to see, but refers to the fundamental concept of integrated reporting, which is about how value is created, how the organisation sits in society and how it addresses issues such as natural capital, the environment and so forth. And then actually the creation process. It then has a series of guiding principles. And those principles are all about how you talk about the business in its entirety, including particularly what is your focus, what is the objective of the business, who are the key stakeholders. Very importantly, that you're only talking about the issues that are material to the business, and that you're talking about the business both from a positive and a negative point of view. So it's not all just the good story stuff, it's actually everything that is relevant to having a good view as to how value is created and how value will be created going forward into the future. And then we have the actual content elements of an integrated report. And I think from here you'll see that this relates to everything that is relevant to the business. So the overall focus of the organisation, what it's there to do, how it's governed, which goes back to the previous session, the business model, i.e. how value is created, the risks and opportunities facing the business, how resources are allocated, and then obviously performance, both past and future, and how the accounts are actually being prepared. And in that regard, the role of the accountant in the integrated report is crucial. It's about telling the story of the whole business. It's about concise communication. And what I found in terms of when I was the chief executive of CIMA, which I stopped at the end of July this year, was that in our own integrated report, there was great value to what we did. CIMA is an organisation of about 60 million sterling turnover, 400 staff, 40 offices around the world. And what it allowed me to do in running CIMA was to connect all of our activities through our business model to make sure that they were all aligned and they were all focused as a team. And Fatima earlier was talking about the fact we're all a team driving a business. That it allowed me to do that through the business model. It allowed me then to connect on the business model the right indicators, the right incentives. It allowed me to address risk through the business model, think about opportunities, address the key relationships of the organisation, and basically look at the organisation and how we were going forward in every respect in the context of how we do business, how we create value, and a series of lenses looking at the business model. And then our integrated report then allowed us to think about really three things. It allowed us to tell our story, obviously, to our stakeholders, but most importantly, it was then addressing it to the right stakeholders, not just, for instance, a corporate perspective, investors. It was also staff. And talking, for instance, to Unilever about their integrated report, they would say, actually having a publication which talks about how we run the business and our purpose and how we're doing and how we plan to go forward in the future was as valuable internally to the staff as it was externally to their investors. So very important in that regard, and also very important in communicating to your customers. So overall, integrated reporting is about telling the story of your business today, where you've been, where you are, and where you're going forward. It very much the story of your journey and why you're an organisation that people would want to do business with or work with. And with that, I'll hand over to Michael to talk about how the take-up is going around the world. Michael.
Thank you, Charles. I was struck by something that Dave Crane, the motivational speaker, had said, and to paraphrase, if I may, life changes a lot and we don't always know that it's happening. So part of my brief at the moment is to help you understand how the life, as far as it relates to the accounting world, is actually changing through integrated reporting and does have the potential to rock the foundations of the accounting reporting style as we know it at the moment. And I'm going to do that by talking about the global momentum, just to make you aware of what is actually happening out there in terms of integrated reporting and who's doing what. It's going to be a pretty quick run through. I'm saying here that there is over 1,000 organisations doing integrated reporting. That's a very rough figure. It's probably, or is in fact, an underestimate, because it's hard to know who's doing integrated reporting, because integrated reporting is founded upon integrated thinking, an internal process. And a lot of people are on the integrated thinking journey toward an integrated report, but have not yet done an integrated report. Or they're doing a report that looks like an integrated report, but they don't mention the framework. So in that 1,000, we're only counting those really who mention the framework, but I'm sure there are very, very many more who are on the journey. And the second quarter there talks about a survey which says that over 50% of CEOs, CFOs and COOs are moving toward integrated reporting. That's probably a better indication. 50% are moving toward, they're taking active steps towards integrated reporting. Another 35% are saying that they will soon be taking those active steps, which means there's only 15% who are left not moving toward or having integrated reporting on their radar. Question, do you want to be part of the 85 or do you want to be part of the 15? There's, we have, within the IIRC, we have a variety of networks and we have very many participants, 750 organisations plus many, many more individuals. And the major networks are the business network, and I might say to you that if you are interested in doing integrated reporting or finding out more, please look at our website, the IIRC website, and look at the business network, because that's where you, if you're going to go on this journey, that's where you'll find the support necessary to help you, both from the IIRC and from your peer group or colleagues who are also on the journey. We also, being here at the ICAP conference, we also have a network for professional accounting organisations or professional accounting bodies. We have about 55 of those at the moment who are joining in regular webinars, etc. We have a number of other networks. So there's a public sector network, there's a network for pension funds, technology company, banks, investors, insurance industry, and academics. So if you're in any of those categories, please feel free to look up our website and look at those. I'm going to delve down into individual countries now, or regions, and the first one is Japan. Japan's a bit of a rising star with integrated reporting, and one of the reasons, probably the primary reason that it is a rising star, is that the Ministry of Economics, Trade and Industry has endorsed integrated reporting as a means of communicating long-term value creation. So it has got that government backing. You'll find that through a number of these countries where there is an amount of government backing, because governments are recognising that integrated reporting is a mechanism for a better, longer-term future. So they have over 200 companies who are actually on the integrated reporting journey at the moment. And I think actually that figure is understated also, because I think I saw some recent figures. It's over 300 companies now. South Africa is the home of integrated reporting, if you like. Professor Mervyn King, some of you may know or know of, who really started this movement with the King reports on governance and first introduced the term integrated reporting. Companies on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange are all on a comply or explain basis asked to do integrated reports. And in fact, the Integrated Reporting Council in South Africa has adopted the international framework as their own framework for that purpose since 2014. In Australia, the country I come from is home to a pension fund network. So pension funds themselves are doing integrated reporting, and they're calling upon the companies in which they invest to do integrated reporting. And we have there something called a Business Reporting Leaders Forum, and it's a multi-stakeholder group of leaders in reporters, there's banks and investors, there are assurers, there are academics, there's the accounting profession in a number of the accounting bodies. They're all part of this Leaders Forum, and that is really forging the way forward to integrated reporting in Australia. In Singapore, the Singapore Stock Exchange itself does an integrated report, and the Accountancy Commission is working with the Ministry of Finance to determine their direction toward integrated reporting. In Malaysia, and I know Malaysia is represented here today, in fact next week I think is the third integrated reporting conference in Malaysia, and again there's sort of high-level support. So the Prime Minister of Malaysia has endorsed integrated reporting, one of the reasons it is getting a spurt on there. India, getting closer to your region. The Securities Exchange Board of India has said it's not a matter of if, but a matter of when for integrated reporting. Okay, the Confederation of Indian Industries, some of you will know, has an IR lab that they've set up, and they've got some of the great and the good in India on that IR lab trialling how to go about integrated reporting in their particular environment. And just to quote the Securities and Exchange Board, whether integrated reporting will happen is no longer a question. We should look at how to implement it in a manner that is not disruptive. So it's going to happen, and I'm here to tell you it's going to happen. Better to be on board than not. In a similar region, Sri Lanka, again, high-level endorsement from the Prime Minister. Learning and adopting integrated reporting will definitely benefit the corporate sector and make our country more attractive for foreign direct investment and local private investment. Moving to Europe, the European Commission, which is actually at the moment working through the implementation of its own non-financial reporting directive, has said that integrated reporting is actually a step ahead of where they are, and it's something, I guess, to which they actually aspire. There's a lot of countries in Europe who have various networks and various configurations in their own country that are working on integrated reporting. To choose one, the Netherlands, where we know that more than a third of the Dutch companies, listed companies in Holland, are working on integrated reporting. And Numedian, which represents the institutional investors in Holland, or in the Netherlands, is actually calling upon companies to produce integrated reports because it says that is the information that the investors need to be able to make informed decisions. In the UK, it's a bit of a special case. In the public sector, the UK Treasury has strongly encouraged all public sector organisations to embark upon integrated reporting. And in the private sector, all listed companies or all public companies? All listed companies are required to do a strategic report according to guidelines determined by the Financial Reporting Council. Now, that strategic report, according to the Financial Reporting Council itself, they say, we use different words in the UK, strategic report, not integrated report, but we are on the same journey with the same purpose. The principles in a UK strategic report are consistent with an integrated report, and we look forward to continuing to work closely with the IARC. So really, listed companies in the UK are basically all doing, under a slightly different name, an integrated report. The Americas, Brazil as an example. Brazil, the stock exchange there is encouraging integrated reporting on a actually they call it report or explain principle. And the Development Bank in Brazil, which is quite a powerful entity as I understand it, has got together what they call the Brazilian Integrated Reporting Commission, and that is a group of over 300 participants, again, multi-stakeholders, accounting firms, investors, preparers, academics, regulators, etc. And they're all together trying to, again, chart the way forward for their particular country in their environment. In North America, Harvard Business School research is supporting integrated reporting. It's saying it makes for a more stable, long-term investor base. CalPERS, one of the biggest, I'm not sure if it is the biggest, superannuation or pension fund in America, I think it may be the biggest in America, is calling on boards in which it invests to provide an integrated report. Larry Fink, known as the world's biggest investor because he's the CEO of BlackRock, is actually asking that every CEO, and he's written to the CEOs of all S&P 500 companies and to major companies in Europe, and asking that every CEO lay out for shareholders each year a strategic framework for long-term value creation. BlackRock's corporate governance team, in their engagement with companies, will be looking for this framework and board review. And board review being, it wants that report to be issued by the board itself. It wants it to come from the top level to make sure it has credibility. So what they're asking for, according to what the CFA Institute has interpreted that as saying, well, basically what Larry Fink is asking for is codified by the International Integrated Reporting Company, a strategic framework for long-term value creation. At a global policy level, integrated reporting, the IARC or key players in the IARC are involved on all of the subgroups for the Financial Standards Board Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures. We're on the G20 agenda. I know the B20, which is the finance ministers of the G20 countries, have endorsed integrated reporting for long-term investment in infrastructure. It's relevant to global sustainability goals. It's relevant to COP21. It's the IFRS, International Financial Reporting Trustees, International Financial Reporting Standards Trustees, have committed to working with the IIRC. And it's not just the IFRS, it's all major standard setters, both financial and non-financial, have joined what the IIRC set up as the Corporate Reporting Dialogue, recognising there are many frameworks and that can be confusing at best. They're trying to get some consistency among these frameworks so that the CRD is an initiative designed to respond to market calls for greater coherence, consistency and comparability between corporate reporting frameworks, standards and related requirements. And you can see the logos there of the international and major players involved. I just want to leave with one last slide, and it really is, if you are interested in this, hopefully these slides will be distributed to be able to see this more clearly. But there is quite a lot of help on the IIRC website and also the examples database website if you want to see what is actually happening in practice. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Good afternoon, everybody. So first of all, before I talk about some key learnings from companies doing integrated reporting, let's just start with IFAC's interest in IR. IFAC is a very proactive supporter of integrated reporting. And in fact, Michael, although he says he's the technical director of the IRC, which he is, he's actually paid for out of my budget to IFAC, seconded to the IRC. So we put our money where our mouth is. And the reason why we do that is because for us, IR is a way of enhancing the corporate reporting system, making it more coherent. At the moment, corporate reporting is very fragmented with different forms of reporting, regulatory reporting, sustainability reporting, financial reporting, etc. So there's a lot of complexity, a lot of inconsistencies, and as Charles said, IR is really a good way of bringing it together. And also there's a really important public interest perspective, which is that financial statements or financial reports in themselves, from a corporate governance perspective, on their own are insufficient for boards and management to discharge their accountability to their investors and to stakeholders. So fundamentally, there has to be a broader view of performance beyond financial reporting, and IR is really the best way of looking at bringing together different strands of reporting. So I'm just going to go through some sort of reflections and learning points on IR, and where I can, I'll use some quotes from CFOs of companies that are doing integrated reporting. So I'm not going to use slides, I'll just talk about it generally. But the first thing that always occurs to me is you know, we can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. So we can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And what I mean by that is that it's very easy to, you know, try and think about getting things absolutely right. But a lot of companies, in the first instance, but a lot of companies working with IR are actually doing things by trial and error. They're talking within their companies and to external stakeholders about what their business model is, what capitals do they use, and what capitals do they affect beyond financial and manufactured capital, which are captured broadly in the financial reports of the company. You know, how are they delivering value in the context of their external environment and the trends affecting their business. These are big issues that take time to get an understanding around, at least let alone measuring them. So it all begins with a dialogue, I think, within companies, because often, as you know, within a company, you won't get immediate agreement on what are the most important, you know, value drivers to the company, and you need to do it in the context of having a discussion with stakeholders. So the most important thing with IR is actually just to get started, is to look at the concepts and principles, and it's a principles-based framework, and actually start looking at what your business model looks like, starting to map it out. We did this at IFAC with our own annual review. Look at the capitals, what do we depend on as an organisation, and do that in dialogue across the organisation. And it actually, like Charles said, with CIMA, it produces just a lot of value in itself. So the fundamental message I can give is actually just to get going. The second thing, and it's a real issue, I think, for the finance community, is that IR shouldn't be seen as just another report. If your mindset at the outset is IR is an additional report, then I think the kind of outcomes that we're trying to get from IR are going to be lost. So IR provides, the framework provides the basis for developing an integrated report as the primary reporting vehicle, the primary report of the organisation. Actually, how you deliver it varies. Now, in South Africa, as Michael mentioned, through the Joburg listing rules, there's a requirement to have your primary document as the integrated report. In other jurisdictions, there's a lot more flexibility about how you deliver an integrated report. And what you see a lot of is, particularly with banks, for example, where they have very complex and rigorous requirements around regulatory disclosure, for example, using an integrated report to actually bring out the key elements of their business and how they're delivering value, talking about the business model, talking about how they see value for themselves as an organisation and for others, and condensing that into a story. So I'll give you one example. Itaú Unibanco, which is Brazil's largest bank, I think it's their largest bank, a great example because they have their regulatory filings document into the SEC is 500 pages. So they have an integrated report which is about 40 pages, and within that integrated report there are embedded links to drill down to more detail in other disclosures if you want to see more detail. But it really brings things together in a very accessible way. So it really should be seen, as an umbrella for other reporting strands and disclosures. It may not make other disclosures go away, but it can provide a lot of context. The next thing is this whole issue of value. So defining value is really key to integrated reporting, and it's really showing value beyond the bottom line and beyond cash flows and how an investor might value a company. So that, if you just think of extractive industries, we've got some people here from oil and gas companies, mining companies, and even banks really are under a lot of pressure to show value, the value that they're delivering to economies and society more broadly. So integrated reporting is really a means to do that. And one way of thinking about value is actually breaking out different stakeholder groups and thinking about what kind of value do you deliver to those groups in discussion with them. So, for example, value to investors might be dividends or retained profit. Value to employees might be salaries, benefits, reputation, a good place to work, all of those intangible things. Value to governments could be in terms of taxes, employment created, increasing productivity, contribution to the economy, etc. Value to suppliers. So you can start to, think about how value is created in a broader sense to different stakeholders. And I think a CFO of an industrial engineering company in Sri Lanka had a nice quote about this, and his quote is, 5 years ago when we spoke about value, we would have looked at what is monetized. Now we look at value through non-monetized capitals as well. So it's that bringing together of thinking about value in a sometimes more qualitative and narrative way if you can't monetize everything. And so that requires you to look at those capitals beyond financial and manufactured capitals, or resources if you prefer the term resources. Whether it's your people, whether it's nature, the environment, the natural capital that you're drawing on, whether it's relationship capital, whatever it is. There's a series of intangible things that you, as a business, you're going to draw on to deliver some kind of value. And a lot of those capitals are not owned or controlled by the company. So for a lot of companies, this is an exercise of looking outside the company into the supply chain. And I think that's a really important and a very complicating factor, because then, again, that takes more time to understand a lot of your impacts or limitations, potential limitations and opportunities to deliver value depend on how you manage your supply chain. And then also the business model. The business model is really a powerful way of mapping out your business. And we did it in the IFAC annual review, and it's actually a very, as I said before, an educational process, and it brings people together. And I think Sasol Energy and Chemical Company has a very good representation of their business model in their reporting. And the way their CFO describes it is that it presents an evolution of their business model which concisely provides an overview of the process through which the business goes through to generate end products, all the way through to marketing. So key to their business model is the identification of inputs, so what goes into the business. In their case, it's natural gas, it's coal, it's crude oil, describing the process through which they are transformed, and then what outputs and effects their products and services have. And what they've been able to do through mapping out that business model is start to think about which elements of their business model need to be adjusted or rethought to make that a more sustainable business model. And some of the key factors for them include GHG emissions, water use and consumption, corporate governance, research and innovation, specific areas that they've identified that they need to really emphasize when looking at their strategy. Which brings me on to my third point, learning point, which is it's all really about realizing the internal benefits of integrated reporting and the thinking that goes with it in the organization. First and foremost, it should lead to changes in the way and improvements in the way you do things. So it's linked to strategy. It gives you a wider perspective on materiality. So you have to get your mind away from the accounting or regulatory definition of materiality, which doesn't work for integrated reporting. And it has to be connected to your management and reporting system internally. So this kind of talks to a lot of things we've been going through in various sessions today. So it's part of, linking to the strategy, linking to the kind of KPIs that you're measuring your business by. And also within that process, some companies will find measures of performance that they've selected actually that really don't have a strong connection to value. And, there will be others that gaps that they've missed. So it's very much about trying to ensure that the information that's being supplied to management is actually more reflective of all of the main value drivers in the business model. And someone mentioned earlier, quite rightly, it starts moving the conversation away from just having lagging historical indicators of performance to leading indicators. So what kind of indicators can give you a prospective view of performance? And just to give you kind of a sense, my personal view, one of the better integrated reports is Goldfields Mining Company in South Africa. And they have a list of their sort of main risks and opportunities, and linked to that a set of KPIs. And I think, 1/3 of those KPIs are all related to issues to do with environment, the nature, social issues, and corporate governance issues. And that's quite telling, actually, if you think about a mining business. So just to give some sort of a flavour to this, some quotes from some CFOs that were included in a IRC Black Sun research report of companies doing integrated reporting. So one is the CFO of New Zealand Post, another postal company. So you really real innovators. The CFO, she said, we developed a business plan using the six capitals model as a basis. It is helping people internally understand the long-term impacts of certain decisions. Then we have the CFO of the Crown Estate, which is the largest property owner in the UK. He says, we have developed a new approach to strategy incorporating integrated thinking, materiality and the business model. Material issues have to be part of the business planning process in order to address the things that will impact our business. So that emphasizes materiality, the business model, the various capitals and the link to strategy. The director of Royal BAM Group in the Netherlands, we can only do a proper integrated report if we have a well-integrated strategy. We have learned a lot. The transition to a more holistic approach to value creation has helped us reflect upon our strategy. So all of this is about internal benefit. So my lesson here is really thinking about, particularly from a management accounting perspective, how we drive internal benefit and improve conversations between finance function, board, management, board, other functions. And finally, I think we should just reflect on the role of the CFO and the finance function, which really is about, I think, ensuring integrated reporting is a core activity. So a lot of reporting in this broader reporting space, I think, like in some companies, sustainability reporting, is sort of done in a corner office. Some of it's kind of very disconnected from the decisions that get made on a daily basis. So the finance function really, first and foremost, I think, can make this kind of reporting and information very core to the information and data that companies are using to make decisions. Secondly, I think they provide confidence in the data. I think it's really important because in the non-financial space there can be a lot of anxiety and concern, particularly from external stakeholders, about the reliability of data. As Charles and others mentioned earlier, that shift from the finance function, the chief financial officer, the finance director, that has to shift to a more broader value-based perspective. And in fact, really integrated thinking, going back to where I started, is the opportunity for finance to expand their role and their influence of their finance teams in their companies. I think that's really important, not from a perspective that finance should own the whole process. Indeed, actually, it's interesting to see HSBC in their integrated reporting approach is actually not given up. The finance function hasn't given up the role of owning the reporting process, but they found that there are benefits to having more parts of the organisation involved in that reporting process. So I think it's more a sort of perspective of collaboration and connectivity. So finance bringing about a more connected planning and communications approach through the organisation and getting away from this sort of status quo that so many of us experience, which is finance does the finance report. Sustainability and Environmental Health and Safety Department do their reporting. Company secretaries and legal counsel do the regulatory and compliance disclosures. Those in the planning and risk area report on risk issues. This kind of very siloed approach just doesn't work. So it's really trying to use finance as a mechanism to bring those aspects together. And then the final element is all about finance having an external, outside-in focus, because the value of improving information and insights is all around understanding the impact of megatrends and changes in the business environment. It's about understanding the impact on products and services that they have on society and in markets. It's about understanding and assimilating the perspectives of providers of financial capital and other stakeholders and what their expectations are from the business, and incorporating all of these into an organisational management process. And lastly, I think we should just reflect on the framework being principles-based. So I think it's important to not think of the framework as a list of specific requirements, but actually enable yourselves to tell your own story in a very unique way. And I encourage you to look at some of the examples on the IRC database and actually get involved in drilling down in some reports to see how companies have innovatively used different ways of presenting and technologies to present their business model, their capitals, how they're driving value. And sometimes it's not in hard copy format, it's often now online in very interactive how they access it. So it's really in a very exciting time. Okay, so Charles, I'm done, so let's allow some questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just wanted to give the audience just the opportunity to ask one or two questions before we move on to the next session. So are there any questions on integrated reporting? Sir.
Hi, my name is Osama. I work with Dun & Bradstreet. My question is from Mr. Status. How is the scope of statutory audit expanding to achieve integrated reporting objectives?
That's a very good question. And Michael, you might speak to this in a minute. There is assurance going on in a limited way of particularly sustainability reporting and some parts of integrated reporting. I think quite a few large corporates make sure that they get what's called the consistency check, so the disclosures that they're making in these other reports is consistent with their regulatory and financial statement disclosures. But an increasing number are using assurance for specific data sets and underlying processes, so for carbon disclosures or climate risk disclosures, or GHG emissions is a great example, where they will get a specific process and a specific piece of data assured by a third party. But this is a really important debate because it's the sort of demand. No one really understands the demand for assurance at the moment, and so the International Auditing and Assurance Standards Board that Michael also works with on this very issue has just released a discussion paper on assurance related to integrated reporting, but other broader forms of reporting as well, to get a sense from people not only how they think assurance should go forward, but also, what is the demand in the marketplace for assurance. And in fact, that's only just come out, and the consultation period ends in December. And in fact, it's on our PAB committee agenda over the next 2 days to discuss our accounts and business perspective of what we think the standard setters and others might do related to assurance. Michael, I don't know if you've got anything to add on that.
You'd want to add?
Just one thing is that you mentioned statutory audit in South Africa, which is where it is sort of required by the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. They, under the King model, are talking about combined auditing. So they're talking about the internal auditor having much more visible role, along with governance, those charged with governance, and the external auditor sharing the role of credibility and trust for the report itself.
Thank you. And I think it is a very important issue that the assurance profession needs to address. Any further questions? Sir.
Microphone, yeah. Got a microphone?
Hi, my name is Kamal Priyani. I'm looking after the management accounting of Royal Jet. It was a good eye-opener about the global view of the integrated reporting. Where do we stand in the integrated reporting in UAE, other part of GCC, and Pakistan? And what is the role IFAC is doing to implement that in these countries?
Thank you for that question. I think it's a great question, and I was going to actually conclude, and I think I will conclude now with your question, if I may, which was that I think that here in the UAE there is less on integrated reporting at the moment, and I would say that what we've heard from what Michael was saying in particular is that this integrated reporting is no longer a question about whether it's going to be adopted around the world. It is undoubtedly going to happen. The speed at which it happens, I think, is debatable, and issues such as assurance are important. I think one of the reasons why I think it's going to be I'm certain it's going to be adopted, are the take-up of companies. One example of that would be that BlackRock, which was mentioned earlier, which is the largest investor in the world, the CPA pension fund, which is the biggest pension fund in the world, and McKinsey's have come together with a large number of corporates right around the world to set up a new organization which is entitled Focusing Capital on the Long Term. And integrated reporting and integrated thinking very much support that particular initiative. So I think it is really important, and I was going to say, here within the UAE, please embrace it. I think it's really important to embrace from the perspective of, even if you don't want to go public with it in the first place, actually try and produce an integrated report internally. I've said this to many companies, and they've discovered that by doing that, it's helped them look at themselves, it's helped them look at how they sit within the external environment, and actually how they can therefore be a better company, producing better value for their customers and other stakeholders, and in particular, obviously, the investors. So, very important initiative. There are certainly quite a few initiatives, though, already going forward in Pakistan, and we could talk about that separately. And so, to conclude, just to say, the IRC website does have a huge amount of material to help you produce an integrated report, to help with integrated thinking. Please do look at that. And thank you very much indeed to our panelists and speakers, Michael and Stathis. Thank you very much indeed for listening to us. Thank you.
Right, let's give our speakers a big round of applause. Thank you very much. You may kindly get seated. I would like now to invite Nick Giannopoulos on stage for his speaking topic, Value-Added Tax, Implication of VAT in the UAE. He's Master of Taxation from the University of New South Wales, Australia, and he has worked in various GST roles in the last 15 years. For the last 7 years, he has worked in Malaysia with PwC, assisting clients implement GST. Let's welcome him all with a big round of applause.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting PwC and myself to speak this afternoon. I've got about 10 minutes, all right, which is not enough time to adequately talk about this topic, so I am going to jump around. I promise you, bear with me. I know you've had a long day. Bear with me. 4:30, I'll be finished, all right? But bear with me. The slides. Yeah. It's eating into my 10 minutes. And if there are any Malaysians here, I think somebody said there are some Malaysians here, Salamat Patang, wherever they are. Okay. I'm going to jump around a little bit. If you don't take VAT implementation seriously, then you will end up like the good old CFO of 7-Eleven in Malaysia. All right. And unfortunately, soon after this, he was no longer the CFO. All right. VAT implementation can be a public relations nightmare if you get it wrong and you don't take it seriously. He wasn't the only CFO to be sacked. Large insurance company in Malaysia, another large bank also gave theirs the chop because they didn't take it seriously. So don't follow 7-Eleven, right? Don't do what they did. So I'm going to come back to the very first point that I want to make today. If you believe that the GCC will not introduce VAT, then you're going along the path of our friend at 7-Eleven. All right. I did this before in Malaysia. There is always people on the board. There's always people in the company who say, no, this is not going to happen. Don't worry about anything. I did the same thing in Australia back in 1999, 2000, and hello to my Australian friend over there. The same thing in Australia. There are always people who said, no, John Howard's not going to do this, it's not going to happen. It is going to happen. It's not a question of if VAT is rolled out throughout the GCC, it's a question of when. Now, on that question, the Gulf Cooperation Council is likely to make some sort of announcement in October, or we're predicting that they make some sort of announcement in October. The announcement's likely to be something along the lines that a VAT framework will be implemented across the GCC, and what that will mean is that the 6 Gulf countries will then proceed to issue their own piece of VAT legislation and laws. Now, so you're aware, each of the 6 countries will issue their own VAT legislation, and most likely it will be different, all right, for social reasons, for economic reasons, for political reasons. Now, out of the 6 countries, it is probably fair to say that the UAE and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia are the 2 most advanced out of the 6 in terms of introducing VAT, meaning that the UAE has already a draft law in place and really ready to go. If there is a formal announcement by the GCC, the UAE could issue their draft legislation in a week or 2's time. Now again, if you don't think that could happen, some of you may be aware of Egypt, who released their law about a week ago and it became effective the very next day. All right, so it can happen. So most likely the UAE and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, being the 2 most advanced, they are likely to proceed with a 1st of January 2018 implementation date. It's probably likely that the other 3 or 4 will then proceed to implement VAT 1 year later, being 1st of January 2019. Yep, keep going. Keep going. Okay, no, previous one. Okay, the VAT, I guess the key point that I want you to take away, for those of you who are not familiar with VAT, the VAT is not a tax on business. It's not going to impact your P&L. But I caveat that, I'll come to a couple of instances where it will, but for the majority of you, you are simply tax collectors for the government. You will charge your customers 5% VAT. Your customers will pay you, the money is theirs. You will hold it in your pocket, and at a certain date, you will remit it to the UAE or the relevant tax authorities. It is not your money again, it is your customers' money. On the expenses side, when you pay your vendors GST, they will charge you GST, and when you pay your vendors, you will claim that back as a credit, right? So the tax for most of you will be revenue neutral, right? For most of your businesses, it will be revenue neutral. The rate will be 5%, and that is the 2nd lowest rate in the world, all right? So it is a low rate. Next slide. Now, I said it's revenue neutral for most of your businesses. If your businesses are involved in these types of activities, so maybe you're a hypermarket or supermarket, you sell basic food items, these will have 0 rate of VAT, no tax, okay? If you export goods, if you export services, right, meaning exported services, you contract with parties overseas and you provide them with those services. You will not charge them VAT. It is a 0 rate of tax. So exported goods, exported services, no VAT. That means that you don't collect VAT for the government. There's no VAT to collect, so you don't send the government any VAT. But all your expenses, Again, all the VAT that your vendors charge you, you will claim a refund back from the tax authorities. So very good, very good. Okay, so if you're involved in these types of industries and activities, that will be the position for you. Next one. Okay, this is where the VAT becomes a serious problem for your business if you are involved in any of these activities. Now, the impact is cost. It will have an impact on your margins, and therefore it will have an impact on your pricing. Right? So under the VAT, make no mistake, the word exempt is bad. Right? Normally when we hear we're exempted from VAT, we think, great, we can wash our hands of it. No, unfortunately, that's not the case. Right? Exempt means this. Exempt means you do not charge your customers VAT. Okay, so you're thinking, great, yep, I don't have to charge them VAT. But where the catch comes in is, exempt means you cannot claim the VAT that your vendors charge you. The 5% VAT that your vendors charge you, you cannot claim. So if you're sitting there now and you think of your P&L, or you take your management accounts and you take out salary and wages and these sorts of things, everything else, literally everything else, will have 5% VAT. So if I sell, lease residential property, I provide financial services, I'm involved in healthcare or education type services, all my expenses will have VAT, and I will not be able to claim the VAT. That means I will have a new general ledger account GST expense, and that amount now will appear in my P&L and of course impact my margins. Now, financial services, very quickly, please don't be mistaken that, oh, this is banks. Banks and insurance companies. Every company provides loans, maybe to subsidiaries or even their employees. Many companies sell goods on credit. Many companies are involved in foreign exchange. Many companies raise capital through bonds, debentures. Many companies buy and sell securities on the stock exchange. All these are financial supplies. So many companies do these sorts of things. We're not talking just banks and insurance companies here. Yep. Okay, maybe go to the last one. Next one, next one. Okay, no, previous one. Okay. I've bolded a couple of numbers here so you see the point that I'm trying to make so you understand it. For everybody else, it's revenue neutral. If you are involved in exempt activities, then when you sell to your customer, you charge him 60 dirham and no 5% VAT. Okay, so you just charge them 60, not, for example, 63 dirham. All right? But in selling those goods or providing those services, your supplier charge you 50 dirham plus 5% VAT. So you incurred 2 dirham and 50 cent VAT. That is a cost to you. You cannot recover that from the government. So that is a new cost to you. As I said, that will impact your margins. All right. Go to the next one. Next one after that. Okay. Very quickly. Okay, good. Yep, VAT, all right, we've picked up a couple of things. But it's far away, the VAT. It's a long way away. I can relax, I'll go home tonight, nice drive down the boulevard and forget all about this. If I enter into a contract today with your business, and let's say it's a a sell and build contract, right? I buy a commercial property from you. We signed the contract today. I gave you a 10% deposit, and you're going to develop the property, and it's going to be ready, and title's going to transfer to me in 2 years. Right? The money that you receive today is subject to VAT 5%. The money that you receive today is subject to VAT 5%. Right? So the question is, the contract that you've entered into today with me, have you factored in the 5% VAT? Have you got a clause in there somewhere that says, hey, Mr. Giannopoulos, clause 11.1, the 1 million dirham contract sum, this clause allows me to gross up 50,000 dirham and charge from you and collect from you the GST. If not, then you're going to be sadly out of pocket, because out of the 1 million dirham, you're going to have to give 50,000 to the tax authorities, and you're only going to keep 950,000 dirham instead of the 1 million that you thought you would book, and you're not going to be very happy. Right. On the flip side, maybe you're not selling me commercial property. Maybe you're selling me residential property. You'll say, hey, Mr. Nick, you said residential property, no GST. Correct. But then, over the 2 years that you're developing the residential property, you're incurring construction costs, surveyor costs, all these building materials, everything else. All these costs, after 1st of January 2018, will have 5% VAT. Did you take that into account in your selling price? Probably not. Probably not. So if you think VAT is far away, you are mistaken. Right? You are mistaken. It's going to cost you money. So other things, capital expenditure, cash flow is a big issue, even if it's revenue neutral for you. Cash flow is an issue under the GST. So if I know in the UAE VAT is coming, and I have some significant CapEx that I've booked for January or February or March 2018, why wouldn't I think about accelerating that and bring that forward to maybe November or October or December 2017? I avoid paying the 5% VAT. Right? You might say, well, yeah, I can do that. It's good in terms of working capital, it's good. But hey, it doesn't matter. I'll still book it in January and I'll get my credit back. Well, let me give you a heads up. The same in Malaysia, the same in Australia, and the same in Singapore. You will not be getting your refunds back from the tax authorities in a short period of time in the first year. Right? Most likely your refunds will be held up at least 3 months, most likely 6 months to 9 months. That's because under every new system where VAT is implemented in a country, the tax authorities are always wary of paying refunds to anyone, because you might get on Qatar or Emirates Airlines and off you go on the first flight after you get the check. So they go through every single refund. They'll touch base with your supplier, with your vendor, to verify that that sale took place, and then they will pay you the refund. So you'll have money tied up for a while. All right, so I'm not going to talk about all of these. As I said, there's a lot to be ready for and talk about, all right, about VAT. Supply and demand. What sort of impact is VAT going to have on supply and demand? Meaning, if all our customers here in the UAE think that things are going to be more expensive after 1st of January 2018, they're going to be rushing for items in the last quarter of 2017. They're going to be rushing to buy. And then, if I'm not ready, I'm going to have items sitting on the floor for at least 2 quarters after 1st January 2018, just sitting there. My sales and marketing people won't even be able to give them away for free. Right. So there's a lot of things to think about and plan about VAT. The last thing I will say is this. I've implemented in Malaysia about 110 GST or VAT implementation projects. I'll give you my last words of wisdom. I hear these things all the time. 2 things. Don't worry about VAT. We have SAP, we have Oracle. We just turn on the switch, configure the system 5%, and we're ready. I've heard that hundreds of times. Don't fall into that trap. And the last thing I'll say is, there will be a culture in most organisations where the VAT project, it's viewed as a finance issue, as a tax issue. Oh, what's this got to do with me? I'm in procurement, I'm in sales and marketing, I'm in underwriting, I'm in commercial banking. What has this got to do with me? Well, it's got everything to do with you because you buy and sell these things. Finance just do the reporting. Right. Now, if you don't tackle this culture or thinking in the organisation, your organisations will struggle to build momentum. It's a long project. It will struggle with the implementation of that. And if you struggle, this is a unique project. This is the only project in the world where you cannot defer the timeline. You can't ring the UAE government in December and say, hey, I'm whoever I am. Can you defer this 1 more month? I'm not ready. It doesn't work like this. This is not a construction project. This is not an IT enhancement project or anything like that. You don't keep pushing back, pushing back, pushing back. You start midnight 31 December 2017 and you work backwards to today. All right. So I think my 10 minutes is up. All right. That's all. I had a bit to say, but just think about the project it is. There's a little bit more to it than what you may think. And thank you very much. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Very concise. Please feel free to speak to Nick if you'd like to know more about taxes. Right, now it's time for the memento distribution for the speakers and time for recognition. I would like to invite Yaqub Sattar, a council member and past president ICAP and deputy chair PAIB, a committee, to give the memento to the panelists and speakers. Let's please all welcome him with a big round of applause. All right, and I'd like to invite first to receive the first memento, Dave Crane. Yeah? Big round of applause to Dave. Thank you. Now I'd like to invite Hamid Kazim. Let's welcome Hamid. Right, I believe he has stepped out. We will keep his trophy for him. I'd like to invite Fatima Al-Ghafali. Please welcome Fatima. It was so nice to see women on that stage. Thank you, Fatima. Now we would like to invite Dr. Ashraf Gamal Al-Din. I think he might have stepped out as well. Let's all welcome Muazzam Ali Shah. Okay. Next, Winston Tophoff. Vincent, yes.
I'm not leaving you alone.
And also let's call Saad Manyar, so he could make his way up here. Saad, yes. Let's all give Saad a big round of applause. Thank you very much, Jacob. You can kindly be seated. And now I would like to invite Khalilullah Sheikh, VP South and Chairman PAIB Committee ICAP. Let's welcome him to the stage with a big round of applause. I would like to invite to the stage to come and receive the memento Stuart Chaplin. And please welcome Stathis Gold. Let's all please welcome Michael Nuget. And let's welcome Nick Giannopoulos. He was just here a few minutes ago. Nick. Please, so you can receive the memento. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Khalilullah. You may kindly get seated. And now I would like to invite Nazir Ahmed, Vice President North ICAP, to give the memento to the speaker. Please welcome Nazir. Right, I'd like to invite to the stage to receive the memento Khalid Mahmoud, President ICAP UAE Chapter. Big round of applause to Khalid. Thank you. Please welcome Asif Zaman Khan, Vice President ICAP UAE Chapter, to receive the memento. And please welcome Faisal Bashir, Member ICAP UAE Chapter, to receive the memento. Let's all welcome Asif Kalim, Member ICAP UAE Chapter. And probably holding his own trophy is Kazi Waqas Ahmed. Yeah? Akbar. Oh, right. And one more, Akbar Basir. Okay, now it's time for Kazi. Let's welcome Kazi Waqas Ahmad, the CEO of Symphotics, to receive his momentum. But please stay with us. We still have 2 to go. Yeah? Big round of applause to Kazi. Kazi.
Now there is no surprise why I'm here. I would like to now invite Rania Ali, who is the Master of Ceremonies for the whole day and did a grateful job, to please take his memento from Mr. Nazif.
Thank you for this. It's an absolute privilege and honor, honestly, to be part of such a great initiative and part of this fantastic CFO conference. I'd like to thank you all today. I really hope that you have enjoyed the conference and found it fruitful as much as I did. To have our vote of thanks, I would like to invite Khalid Mahmoud, President of ICAP UAE chapter. Please welcome him with a big round of applause.
Thank you very much. On behalf of ICAP Pakistan and ICAP UAE chapter, I owe thanks to many individuals and entities. Before that, I just would like to take this opportunity to apprise those who don't know about the chapter. UAE chapter was incorporated 4 years ago, and 2 tenures already expired. The new elections are due in October. I would request all ICAP members to please cast your vote, because unless you cast your vote, you won't be able to have an effective MC in place to continue the journey from here to onward. I would like to thank His Highness for gracing the occasion today. At the same time, the Ambassador of Pakistan, he was able to spare some time for the occasion. Of course, my thanks are due to IFAC and PAIB committee for choosing Dubai as the venue for their meeting, at the same time collaborating with us and sharing their knowledge and wisdom with us. We are really grateful for that, and without them, I would say without them, this conference would not have been that successful as we want it to be. Of course, we are thankful to the panelists and speakers who not only share the knowledge, but of course they were keen to do so, and I'm sure that each one of us will carry something with us which we can implement in our day-to-day professional life. Of course, I'm indebted to the sponsors, Platinum Agdia, Gold sponsor AGMC, who are the distributor of BMW, Crow Howard, Silver Equipar, Citibank, supporting partner Pakistan Association Dubai. As you might be knowing that we as a wing work as a wing of Pakistan Association Dubai. So that's the legal cover we work here. So we are always thankful to them for their support, not only today, but on and off they have been very helpful and supportive. We are thankful to media partners, Khalij Time and Jung Media Group, and of course the local media personnel who covered today's event. We are thankful to exhibitors, ABL Asset Management. We definitely look forward that you will continue supporting us in our endeavor for the next year as well. And of course, my thanks are due to the audience. You have been very patient, and I'm sure that you will be able to take something with you, as I said, which you can implement in your day-to-day professional life. For this meeting, of course, UAE Managing Committee and my colleagues, they work really hard. I really am thankful to them, because without their support, it would have not been possible. Then, of course, we have all the support from ICAP council members and ICAP team, and without their support, it would have not been possible. Thank you very much. And last but not the least, of course, Symphotix Vikas. He has worked very hard with us, and we felt that sometime we really put him in trouble, but he was very patient and bear us in that. And thank you very much, Vikas. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good evening. Thank you very much.